Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation, and today I just want to have a little bit of fun. We're going to put together predictions, in a sense. Now, I have no backing, no extra information on any of this, but it's just kind of a little, just have a little fun with it and put together some predictions and some thoughts and stir up a little bit of drama in the comments section to see if you guys agree, disagree with what I'm calling out here and what I think is going to be the top 5 armies in 10th edition that are going to be the top of the meta spectrum when we get into the new edition here. That's going to be in the next few months. It's speedily getting to us as I'm making up words as we go. But we're getting real close to 10th edition. It's the hottest topic. Everybody's covering it, all sorts of news. And I've wanted to kind of change the idea a little bit. You know, everyone's covering a lot of the news. You can catch a lot of news clips on Warhammer's website, but I want to just have a little fun here and make some guesses on who might be the top meta armies coming out of 10th edition in my top 5. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do, and turn on that bell for notifications. We're going to be doing a lot of different stuff here in the coming weeks, trying some new stuff out with the battle reports, and as well as how I'm going to present some of the news as it goes forward, because it's really tough to keep up with some of the guys who have things out there. As soon as we see news drop on the website, they already got videos. So I want to try and change it up a little bit and have a little fun with it, as I said. So without further ado, let's go on to the number 5 pick in my tier list of who I think will be the top meta armies going into 10th edition, or at the beginning of 10th edition, I should say. Starting off with number 5, the World Eaters. So I think that the World Eaters Codex was an archetype for what we're going to see the new codexes in 10th edition look like. And with that being said, I think that their index is going to reflect that a lot for their new model line and such. Those who don't know, the World Eaters haven't had really the biggest selection of models on their model lines. A lot of it was just chaos miniatures that were converted. So I think that's kind of a point to see that Games Workshop is going to want to keep those models on the shelf. Now, as of late, it's been kind of difficult to get 8-bound, and Berserkers, they tend to be out of stock quite frequently. So it's not like Games Workshop is having an issue in selling those models, but I think that's going to stay at the top of the chain. Since World Eaters Codex being so recent, I think we're going to see a lot more from them as well, too, in the coming edition, since I think Codex was kind of designed around this archetype that we're going to see with 10th. So I think World Eaters are going to translate over really well, as the new models and new units that we see are going to be strong in that new edition as well. And I think they'll do very good coming straight out of the index and starting us off with a very strong close combat army right in the beginning of the edition. Number 4, Imperial Guard, or Astra Militarum. So Imperial Guard players have waited a very, very long time for a codex. And now that they have their book, once again being a later book, I think some of its new abilities will translate over into the 10th edition index from them. Not to mention the fact that one of the trends you're going to see with my next choices is going to be the fact that they can take guardsmen very, very cheap. The first set of indexes that we saw, Imperial Guard did really well with conscripts. Unfortunately, their Penal Legion was one of the top units in that. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to remember taking their guardsmen and saying, well, I guess we're running with the Penal Legion and taking all these conscripts, because it was just a nightmare to have to deal with and on the battlefield with how many bodies they could put down. So with that being said, they also have the tanks to back it up with, and a wide variety of different tools that they can utilize coming into the edition. Now, I've heard whispers and rumors that one of the rules that the tanks currently have, being able to shoot their turret out of combat, might be something that goes game-wide, where turret weapons are able to fire outside of combat, which would be really cool, and Imperial Guard are not lacking in that column. So I feel like the Imperial Guard Codex we currently have, and the Imperial Guard Index are going to be, again, very similar in nature, with shaving it down and making it a little bit smaller. And the Imperial Guard, the rules and the way their army is set up is going to do very, very well right out of the gate for 10th edition, and that's why they got my number 4 slot. Number 3, Adeptus Sororitas, Sisters of Battle. So every time that I see Sisters on the table, every time I run into a Sisters of Battle army at a tournament, I'm always scared because it just seems like they always find some way to just have this really, really crazy cool pick as far as their armies are concerned, whether it's Redemptor or Retributors or Repentia. There you have just these little units that come in there and just take all of the rules of the game and turn them on their head and just are a complete nightmare on the battlefield. And it just always seems like every time something changes, Sisters are one army that's always able to adapt really, really well and just come out of the backfield where there's these top meta choices, top meta armies, and then there's Sisters of Battle. But it always comes into it's like, oh, who plays Sisters? There's very few Sister players. And I notice that it doesn't seem like they're one of the most popular armies. And for that reason, they always seem to just have these strong picks and strong pickups. And I think that we're going to see that in 10th edition too. They'll just have something really cool in that index that's just going to turn the entire game on its head. And it won't evolve into a problem because of a smaller player base. So I think that Sisters will be a very, very respectable army and will still be very strong just on patterns we've seen in the past. Number 2, Space Marines. So it looks like the Space Marines are going to get one book that's going to have everybody in them. I don't know what that means for Blood Angels and Space Wolves and stuff like that. But given the fact that they're right there on all the cover art, we're getting Terminators, we're getting all these unit upgrades and all these different things. Space Marines are probably going to be one of the first armies within the first couple months to see a codex. And with that, that means they will have all of the cool new rules, all the cool new features turned up to 11. So I think that right off the gate, and it's just going to be one of those inevitables, we're going to be looking at a Marine summer into a Marine fall, where Marines are going to be a top meta pick, not because they're overpowered, not because they're grossly destructive or just completely unfair to play against. It's going to be the fact that all the new toys and all the new tools that we have in the game, they're going to be able to use better. If you remember at the beginning of the edition when we switched over, codexes like Necrons and Space Marines that started off had just a little extra layer because they had things that happened in the command phase, little extra abilities that they were more suited for 9th edition that gave them a little bit of a boost going forward, some of the core special rules. And then there was some other armies that didn't need those special rules because they were still able to target their entire army with rerolls, which helped them stay strong in the meta. But I remember playing against some people and they say, man, I can't wait to see my book. I can't wait to do all these cool, extra fun features that your army and your book has. And for that reason, Space Marines, I think, is really going to be one of the top contenders. They're the poster boy for this game, so I think we will see them at the top of the meta. And lastly, number 1, the Tyranids. It seems like it's going to be time for the Tyranids. I mean, we saw Tyranids have a really, really strong showing in the meta for quite some time when they gave them Crusher Stampede was running everybody over. Then we got Leviathan update. Then we got an actual codex, and that codex just made so many brutal, brutal, brutal armies. And then they got nerfed. And then we saw more brutal armies. And then they got nerfed. And then we got Spore Mines. And then they got nerfed. So Tyranids had to get nerfed quite a few times to put them back in check. So they were a very strong seller in the meta. Now, I still think they're very strong in the game right now. They just require a different play style and some different units and stuff that people may not have originally been looking at before. Now, once this new edition comes out, one thing that we've heard is that Tyranids are going to be getting an update to their model line. So the best way that I can look at this, unfortunately, is not from Games Workshop. It is kind of a little bit with Games Workshop history, but as well just what we look at for this entire game and what it is. Games Workshop is a company. They're going to want to sell models. They're going to want to sell the new models. So some players are going to want the new models just because of the fact that they're going to be cool looking. They're going to be very nice and very fun to paint. They're going to want to add those to their army. But on top of that, newer players or players that may have only dabbled in Tyranids in the past are going to probably need to add some of these units to their army, which means upgrades, more units, more models. And with all those new models, that means that, well, how do you sell them? Well, you make them very, very, very powerful and make them auto includes in some lists. And I know we hate this. We talk about it with the power creep and everything else, but eventually everything else dials back into check. Me personally, I enjoy the power creep. I don't mind a world that we go into where Tyranids are the most dominant force in the meta, and you're going to a tournament and 20%, and 20% is actually quite high. Like Marine armies usually see about 20, 30%. And there might be some people that might see different and say it in the comment section, but typically I see about 20 to 30% Marines at tournaments. And that's Space Marines, one of the most popular armies in the game, if not the. And if we were to see a 20% Tyranid layout, I personally think that'd be kind of cool, because not only does it give us to the tournament factor of, okay, well, how do we beat the bugs? But it also helps tell the narrative that Games Workshop is trying to push, and that is that Tyranids are swarming and they're all over the place. And what better way to make them this threat but make them one of the most devastating armies in the game for a while again? Initially out the gate, I think we're going to see a lot of Termagant Horde lists, with them reducing the killing potential of a lot of weapons in the game. That 5-up save that the Termagants have inherently, I think is going to be pretty good on cheap, spammable units. So we'll see, I think, a lot of those. I think a lot of Gaunts, and then maybe some Hormagaunts as well, depending on if they get a kit out of release too. I have a good feeling. I think we're going to see a Hormagaunt kit this year, because if they're cleaning up the model line, one that needs it is the Hormagaunts. And anyone who's built those things and moved them and felt them fall over knows that the only unit that's worse to try to move on a battlefield than Hormagaunts is Gargoyles, as far as the basic infantry is concerned. So hopefully we see an update on those too. But again, this is not based on any facts. This is not based on any numbers. This is just a guess. This is me throwing a guess out there to have a little fun. What's your top 5? Let me know in the comments section. What do you think the 5 armies that are going to come out of the gate? We'll say like 2-3 months. Give them time for like 2 Codex releases. Say with Space Marines and Tyranid having a Codex release. That's what we'll say. What are your top 5 that you think are going to be huge off rip in the meta? I know I left Dark Angels out there with Lionel. I think that he's going to be great. I don't necessarily know he's going to be the top, that he's going to bring them into the top tier. I think that they might get a little bit pushed back a bit as far as some of the other Marine chapters are concerned, but who knows? Maybe he seems like a really offensive character is what I feel. So I don't feel like he's going to bring the army up. It's just he's going to be a monster to deal with in his own right. But hey, let me know what you guys think in the comments section, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.